What's up, everybody? Matt Aguilar here from Comicbook Nation, and welcome to The Pull List, a brand new series on our Comicbook Nation YouTube channel, which, by the way, you can subscribe to. There's a button somewhere around here that you can subscribe to it. I definitely recommend it. We cover books on the show, and that is not going to change. However, here we can get into a little more in depth on certain books and then also expand to a few other books that we can't cover on the show just because of the poll and time, right? So we're going to get into some books here. We've got a lot of good choices. First, we're going to dive into AXE Judgment Day #4, of course, written by Kieran Gillen, drawn by Valeria Skiddy, colored by Marte Gracia, and lettered by Clayton Cowles. So many big ideas in this issue, and I know the reaction's been a little mixed from the CB Nation crew on this whole thing, how it's coming together. I feel like I enjoy it more than I thought I would enjoy it, and that's credit to the amazing team that is behind this and kind of getting me to care about these Eternals characters that I just could not care less about coming into this. I feel like, again, they are the kind of B players here, even though they are like the reason a lot of this stuff is happening. They're still kind of the B players in the series. I'm okay with that because I'm a bigger X-Men fan. I will say there's a great moment in here. If you are a fan of Magneto, which I am, there's an amazing moment in here between Magneto, Storm, and just kind of just this amazing fight that we will by the way be getting into spoilers here. It is the X-Men, so Magneto of course gives his life here to do this just amazing kind of last ditch battle with Uranus. But I will say they are immortal pretty much. So it's like, yeah, he's dead, but like not really dead. It's that whole thing. But in any case, this whole moment though, just with this celestial being kind of judging everyone, and in this moment where Magneto could have reached out to somebody, he didn't. And it's also like the expression on his face, just it's an amazing moment. And so I guess that's probably the biggest thing to come away from this particular issue and this series overall. There are some amazing moments. It is not necessarily like the most riveting overall event, but there are moments that I will remember. And there's another moment towards the end, right? Anytime Captain America is freaked out enough, where you're so used to him being fearless, and even in the most dire situations, he stands for hope. So when you see him kind of, oh my God, we're all going to die in that whole final sequence, it makes an impact. It hits you. So let's move on from that to Captain Marvel #41. Yes, you knew I was going to talk about Captain Marvel. We still are going to talk about Captain Marvel on the show as well. But Trials #4, this is the kind of true final issue of this particular arc. And Scarlet Witch is very hard to move away with. Like, if you're going to give MVP awards, there's a couple to give in this issue because, again, it's the supporting cast that really comes into play with Carol. But Scarlet Witch, I have really adored throughout this entire arc. And here again, we get this great, really touching, heartfelt moment with her in defense of Carol towards the end. Fantastic, love it. And then anytime Binary and Jessica Drew are on the same page together, it's magic. But then you throw like L'Oreal, and then you throw in Hazmat, and it's brilliant. There's a great hugging scene when they all jump right on Carol because they haven't seen her, and they didn't know what happened to her. There's a whole thing with Jessica Drew getting upset with Hazmat because like she's eating tacos and she's not in her suit when like there's a big kaiju like creature and the thing. It's great. I laugh so many times. Kelly Thompson is so good, and I'm so bad about this. Oh my God, I gotta get used to this. So this issue, of course, is written by Kelly Thompson. Drawn by Juan Frigeri, Alvaro Lopez, and then colored by Jordi Belair and lettered by Clayton Cowles. I got to get used to that. I don't do that on the show, and that's one of the things I actually really wanted to spotlight here, is to really give some shine to the whole creative team, right? So I love this issue. I also just love what Thompson is doing with Enchantress, because this is if you've been reading this current iteration of the series for a while, they've been building to this. Enchantress has been kind of a bigger player in Carol's story. But here it really feels like the cementing of a feud, to use a wrestling term. It feels like we're actually getting, like, there is not even a rivalry, there is some bad blood here. You can understand it from both sides. And so those make for the most compelling villains, right? Is when they actually have a legitimate axe to grind. And in this case, you can understand where Enchantress is coming from. Even with the revelation of the memories and stuff, it's still like, you tried to kill my son. It's kind of hard to get around that. Even though you understand where Carol was coming from, you can take the right or wrong out of it. It makes a compelling conversation. So I'm excited for that. We're actually seeing a full-on hero and villain back and forth come to play for, like, this could be a long time thing, right? And it's awesome. It's always good to see another villain kind of given some shine in Captain Marvel's Rogues Gallery, which needs, new villains, or even just new dynamics for old villains. So let's get into Batman versus Robin #1. Can't leave DC out of things. We have writing by Mark Waid and then art by Mahmoud Asrar. I did not expect to. I've been following a lot of the Batman books. Actually, I think I'm following almost all of the Batman books, but I kind of fell off Robin for a minute. And so catching back up, kind of, okay, like there's a, like, here, if you go in kind of without really reading Robin, or at least knowing what the Robin series was about, I feel like you'll probably be a little, not confused, but just like a little off, like you're on your back foot. Like you'll be kind of like, I don't understand quite where all these puzzle pieces are fitting, but it does a decent enough job getting you up to speed and at least hooking you to go and maybe read some other books, right? So I got it back up to speed. And then there's this amazing opening scene that probably a lot of people have seen in previews, where the person kind of showing up to the door of Wayne Manor is Alfred, right? And of course, he's been dead quite a while. In fact, way longer than I thought they would actually keep him off the board. Comic characters have a habit of coming back to life, and I thought, oh, it'll be 3 months and he'll be back in some way. And no, I'm actually really proud of DC that they kind of stuck to their guns on that for a little bit longer, right? And so now he's back, and you don't know why, but it ties into what's happening with Damian, and it seems like there's some kind of real reasoning behind it, and they're tying that into Justice League Dark. So that's cool. And so now there's this actual Batman versus Robin. It's not just this play on the title, it's actually legit. But we still get this Alfred story. Bruce and Damian have, like, there's hole in their lives since Alfred died, and in a very different way, right? Because like Damian, it's even more screwed up, because like Damian had to watch it happen, whereas Bruce, couldn't be there, and that has its own regret and things. So I love the sequences between them, even the one between him and Alfred and Damian, because like Damian doesn't believe it, but like he's hit for a moment, it touches him for a moment, right? But there's a scene in a boat. And that scene, if that scene doesn't make you like, not even tear up, if that scene doesn't hit you in the feels a little bit, you're made of stone. Because that was when he says he's my son too, like he's my family too. I lost it. I was sitting there reading, I had to reread it again, and there's a hug, and it's everything. I love it. I love it so much. So it's worth it for that alone, but it's also telling a really interesting story. There's also some screwed up imagery here. Anytime you get the Justice League Dark involved, it's always that. But like seeing Zatanna with her neck broken, hanging from the ceiling, but like she's alive and talking to you, very disturbing. Don't read that before you go to bed. Please do yourself a favor. Don't do what I did, because I did it and that image was in my head all night long. So Do A Powerbomb #4. This is one of my favorite series. We're talking about the writer artist Daniel Warren Johnson. Mike Spicer is on colors, and Russ Wooten is on letters. This is a stellar series. I have adored the series since it launched. This one is no different. I love seeing the kind of weird histories and how these other tag teams from across the universe came together and ended up in this tournament, and also what they're fighting for. In this case, it's kind of real fantastical King Arthur type stuff for this team. But then we get into a later thing where it's like some of the teams are actually fighting for the same person and bring them back from the dead. Really interesting stuff. But honestly, just the way this book brings the artwork and actually makes a match feel like a match, like when they execute their finisher, right? And you actually see it split into two parts, and like the way that's spread across the back of the panel, and it just feels so dynamic. Like when you're watching a wrestling match and someone hits their finisher like that, and the commentary team's talking, it just has that feel, and it's so colorful, and all the colors pop off the page. When she's getting, when she's getting hit over and over and over, when Steel Rose is like, can't get the tag, and you feel that, like every crunch of, like, man, it's an amazing job they've done of making a book feel like a wrestling match. And so it's awesome. And also, I'm not the biggest like weapons and like hardcore match style person. Like a lot of blood and a lot of, like, when you start bringing like lights in, you start bringing hammers and all kinds of weapons in, like sometimes it's not like, that's not my bag. But here, it makes sense within context of the story, and like it's a great hook to see like a chair wrapped in barbed wire, to see a barbed wire bat. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see where we go. So love what they're doing there. Cannot wait for the next issue. And last but not least, certainly not least, see what I did that tied into the title there. We have The Least We Can Do #1, which is a brand new series from Image, comes from writer Yolanda Zanfardino and artist Elisa Romboli. This was a book that I had actually not heard much about coming into the issue, and I'm so glad I read it. It looked right up my alley just from the art style, and also just the setting, kind of being in this magical, fantastical worlds with like larger than life characters. Like I tend to kind of like that aesthetic. I tend to like that tone. And so this did not disappoint. There's some great kind of winking and nodding moments, you know, in some of the dialogue and stuff, because it means to be, you know, bringing attention to some of the dialogue in like a fun way, because the actual people within the book are reacting to it like the audience is. So it's self-aware, and I like that. It's not like super meta. It doesn't, you know, comment on itself all the time, but it does have some of those small moments where like you're in it with the people in the book and you're all reacting like, what is wrong with this person? Like, what is going on with this person? So there's some really fun moments there. I adore the artwork. The artwork is just gorgeous. And there's some of the moments, we don't get a ton of it in this issue, but we get some of the powers themselves, which are the mediums, which are these kind of materials that have different varying abilities. We see some of that in play during a training session, and it's cool how you can use them to be like, you can use them to add speed, or you can use them to add strength, or you can add them to a weapon. Like they act a lot like runes, right? So that's an interesting dynamic, especially when you have someone that can make the colors pop and the abilities kind of really come to life, and they're all together on one page. It's really cool. But overall, I just really like some of the fun characters. We get Seth and Lucy. They're adorable, and I love them already. Seth's the leader, and he's just got this calm, steady demeanor. And he's talking to the main protagonist, which is Uriel, and she's so enthusiastic and idealistic. And I just love, they have a conversation later on where he's talking about, you know, some of that has been kind of lost in this cause. You know, they've been so busy fighting just to stay alive and survive and keep the movement going, that a lot of kind of this new generation that has grown up in this has kind of lost some of that like idealism, you know, some of that, like, we want to survive past this. We want to live a life that is peaceful and not full of war. So to have that is really cool. And he loves that. And he wants to bring that into the group more. Right. So I just thought this was superior, like, so charming, so fun, and really enjoyed this issue. I'm going to stick with the series. So I hope the rest of the series is this good, because it's a great jumping off point. So yeah, so that is comics this week. Of course, we will talk about more comics on the show as well, but I hope you enjoyed this. Let us know in the comments what books you would like to see us talk about more. We'll do new books, but also I do want to revisit some, you know, graphic novels and some other stories. We've got Batman Day coming up. We've got some other things. So if there's things you want us to talk about, definitely let us know. And until next time, peace.